Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. And in this update, we are going to check out XRP's price chart and see what is going on in the short term. Specifically, we are going to talk about the recent move up that we got in the last 48 hours. But before we get into all that good stuff, we are at first going to talk about this very important article, because in case that you don't know, Ripple just expanded its partnership with BBVA, which is one of Europe's biggest banks, to offer custody services. Now, it's very important to know that this isn't actually a new relationship. No, they have been working together since 2017, starting with cross-border payments, but now BBVA is moving much deeper into crypto infrastructure, and Ripple's technology is powering that shift. Now, in here, the custody part comes through MiCA, which is a Swiss company that Ripple acquired, and BBVA Swiss and also Turkish branches were already using MiCA's platform, but now the Spanish core is also joining in, and that means that Ripple's infrastructure is being used to store and manage digital assets across multi-BBVA regions. And you might ask, well, okay, what does all that mean for XRP? I have 5 very important points for you. Number 1, XRP is officially part of BBVA's custody offering, and that gives retail and institutional users direct access to XRP through a regulated banking channel, not just through exchanges and third-party wallets. Point number 2, this actually boosts liquidity to a decent degree. Why? Because more users holding XRP through BBVA means more volume and potentially even a stronger price support in the mid to long term. It's very important to understand that this is not some short-term news that you are going to see the effect of it very immediately. That's just simply not a thing. Point number 3, Ripple's infrastructure in here, it's tied to the XRP ledger, and even if in the scenario XRP is not going to be used in every single transaction, okay, its presence in the ecosystem, in my view, still is going to grow, and that, my friends, strengthen its role as a bridge asset and liquidity layer. And my final reason, but definitely the not least important reason, comes down to MiCA compliance unlocking institutional use. Because in here, Ripple's custody solution actually meets EU regulatory standards, and that opens the door for XRP to be included in ETFs, structured products, and even institutional portfolios across Europe. So, question, why should we actually care about this? Because XRP's role seems to be evolving really fast, and it's no longer just about remittances. No, it is now involved in regulated custody, tokenized asset platforms, and potentially even a stablecoin ecosystem, like for example RLUSD. And that kind of diversification adds long-term utility and makes XRP more relevant to institutional players in the mid to long term. And when I say long term, I don't mean just by the next year. No, I'm talking about the next couple of years, maybe even the next decade. So I know, talking about news like this, which you are not going to see the effect of them on the price immediately, might be a bit boring, but overall, in my view, these are actually the things that you need to pay attention to if you want to be a long-term holder. And as my final takeaway, I think this move puts XRP inside regulated banking infrastructure. And if Ripple continues onboarding banks like BBVA and XRP is going to remain as part of supported assets, then okay, we are going to be looking at a serious shift in how digital assets are accessed and used. And that, in my view, could be a very important reason to be extremely bullish on XRP. So overall, I would say definitely positive news. But now let's go on the live chart and see what is going on in terms of technical analysis in like very short term, because it's not actually related to this specific news, but we did actually get some positive price action in here. And if you remember the last time that we talked about XRP, I think we were right around here, and the idea was that if you want to see a move on the upside, just be a bit patient and see a break of the next line for this beautiful looking head and shoulder structure. And we said by breaking the next line, right in here, we mean that we should go above it. Followed by that, we get a very slow and choppy pullback, and then a continuation of the move up in order to take this initial high right in here. And the moment that we did this around, let's say $2.9, then okay, at that point you could have argued that in XRP our move up is going to continue. Now the question is this move necessarily an optimistic sign? I'm going to tell you in a bit why, but before that, let me tell you why I think this move is probably going to continue, let's say for another 2, 3, 4%. You see, if you want to say that we're gonna have our final low around this area, let's say this is like a very important support, then okay, you have to be able to find off of the lowest low in here a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave. This specific structure is called an impulsive movement. Rules for it are, we should not have overlapping of the waves between wave 2 and 4 and in any kind of 5 wave. Wave 3 is not allowed to be the smallest wave, and when it comes to the sub waves, you probably know what I'm about to say, right? We have to be able to find 5 wave up into wave 1, 3, and 5. And for wave 2 and 4, we can have different scenarios, doesn't really matter. Let's say an ABC for wave 4 and like a WXY into wave 2. Now, sometimes off of the lowest low, we can have another pattern, and overall those are going to be correction structures. And in this specific scenario, I want to talk to you about having an ABC zigzag, which the subwaves for it are going to be like this: 5 up into a correction for wave B. We can have different patterns. Let's say in this case just an ABC zigzag, a normal one, and yet another impulse up into C. Now let's go on the live chart and see what is going on, and let's actually be a bit optimistic and say in XRP we are having, starting from the lowest low, 5 wave up in this phase to about here or here, not really that important, followed by that a correction down. And the question is, what is going on right in here starting from this point to around the recent price action? And here is what I have in my mind. In my view, there's like a very good chance this is 1, this is 2, good move up into wave 3, correction for 4, another move up into wave 5. I think this is definitely like a very clear impulse. We can all agree on that. Now pay attention, also in here we are having, excuse me, another beautiful looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave, and between these two this is a correction down, either an ABC zigzag or maybe a WXY, generally some sort of a corrective movement. It's not really that important, and this is why I think our move up is going to continue a bit more in XRP, even if you want to be pessimistic. I'm thinking on a higher degree, this is 1, correction for 2. This beautiful 5 wave is quite a strong one, which is one very important characteristic of what? You know the answer, a decent wave 3, and followed by that, this scenario suggests the current move down in XRP, it's just going to be a correction structure into our wave 4. And what's next? You know what? We are probably going to have yet another move up into wave 5 in order to take the highest high for the first target around, let's say $3.03, but I think we're going to go quite a bit higher than that. So let's just say we are probably going to have from the lowest low about a 5 to, even if we are lucky, 10% move on the upside. Now here's a very important point. I think this move up sort of kind of is going to be a given, and in the short term you can trade it, fair enough, but from my POV this doesn't really worth trading. What really matters in my opinion is this: what are we going to do after we complete this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave? Why? Because in case that we see a very strong move down, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 without a lot of overlapping of the waves, that is going to be like a very bearish sign, suggesting in XRP, you know what, off of the lowest low, this is just an ABC zigzag and definitely not an impulse, suggesting our move down is going to continue, and the bottom unfortunately is not in yet. On the other hand, if we end up getting, after this small phase up, a very slow and choppy move down followed by another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and focus on the sub waves, because this actually is kind of important. I'm going to tell you in a bit why. If we do end up getting a 5 wave up after a slow move down, great sign. At that point, I'm going to be able to tell you, look, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave, which is awesome. And it suggests that probably we have hit our final low. I'm not going to say with a lot of certainty that we have hit our final low at that point. I'm just going to say, okay, we are looking good and definitely on the bullish track. And pay attention, right around the highs in here, you are not going to see me calling this thing a long opportunity. No. Why is that? Okay, here's a question for you. What happens after a 5 wave up, even if you want to go according to the most bullish scenario? I think you know the answer if you are a regular viewer. One way or the other, we are going to have a move down. And then when we get this, we are going to pay full attention to the shape of our move down. And assuming that we identify all the right structures, fair enough, then this can be at the end of our pullback down, a beautiful long opportunity in hope that we get yet another huge move on the upside. Now, here is my final point. Why did I say after a consolidation, you have to see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the sub waves in here matter quite a bit? Because in the previous video, if you remember, we talked about the idea of having, starting from this point, an A, B, C in form of an expanded flat, and this scenario may still very well be in play. And in that case, then okay, we can say this is a correction down, and this is still going to be a 5 wave on the upside, but now it's going to be into an A leg correction for wave B, and we're gonna have another good move up into our C leg. And in terms of the sub waves, you may also end up having a 5 wave, but pay attention, odds are into your B leg. If this is truly an ABC as opposed to a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are going to see a rather deep move on the downside in order to maybe even reach to about these levels around the $2.8 region. And in that case, your next move up is not really going to be that strong. And for example, we can take the highs, but maybe we're just going to go barely higher. And then guess what? We are going to have a move down. And at that point, I'm going to tell you, look, odds are we have completed the sub waves for a WXY in form of a flat and a zigzag. So as you can see, the structures in here at the moment in XRP are quite complicated, and it's not always as great as it looks. So I'm gonna say you need to be a bit patient and careful and wait for a pullback, then another move up, then a pullback, then another move on the upside. What you do not want to see is a rather good move down from the current point even in order to take this important slow down here around $2.79, because at that point finding a 5 wave in here is going to be extremely challenging, to a degree that is going to make me say, you know what, we are not bullish in here, and odds are this is some sort of a corrective movement indicating our move down is simply not over yet. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in XRP's price chart. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the markets, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and loved ones. Goodbye.